Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Business Talks. I am your host, Shawan Burns, and today we are going to talk about Biden. Biden had a busy week. I mean, he's was celebrating Pride Month on the White House. I think it was Saturday or Sunday, one of those days. Um, and some trans activist decided to expose himself to everybody, his fake breasts to everybody. And so the White House had to respond to that on Monday. Tuesday, they decided to send out an arrest warrant for Trump. I don't know if you call it an arrest warrant, but charges of espionage, like 37 charges of espionage towards Trump. So they had to arrest Trump. And Biden saying it wasn't politically motivated, but Trump is his biggest rival. And I don't think if Trump wasn't running for president, I don't think none of this would have happened. But since he's the front runner for the presidency election for 2024, Biden decided that he needs to press charges, try to ruin all his chances of even getting elected. But I don't think that's going to stop him. So then I mean, I don't know if it's really been in the news, but the Judiciary Committee questioned the FBI on a $5 million uh, monies that was received by Biden, and the informant hasn't been found, or they're trying to get the informant to testify, but the FBI is stonewalling this committee. So we'll take a look at that. And also, um, since Trump was indicted or officially charged, he he pled not guilty, you guys, and so everybody's mad about that he pled not guilty, and he decided to actually still campaign. He visited a couple of spots in Miami, and he was great spirit about that. So the View was mad about that, and also CNN was mad about that. So we'll take a look at those clips um, later on today. But first, I want to share with you. This is what the big hoopla is about with that trans activist. So they decided to celebrate Pride at the White House lawn. And the problem with Pride is, I think if you talk to normal, everyday people like the LGBTQ community, I don't think they represent this. I think their movement was hijacked by some other movement. This is my own personal opinion. I know a few gay people, and some of them are conservatives, and I don't think this is a good representation of them. But this is what we see in the media. So I think their whole thing has been hijacked. And then number two, since all this stuff with transgender, and they're trying to push this trans ideology with the kids in schools and stuff, Pride is probably one of the most, or the worst, I guess, holiday that is celebrated in the US. People hate the holiday now. You know, I mean, I believe people were like, okay, this is what you do. We'll let you do whatever. But once they started pushing trying to force other people to celebrate it, I think it became a problem because we don't look. I'm not a part of that community, so why do I have to celebrate it? That's just like forcing other people to celebrate Juneteenth. Celebrate Juneteenth. It should be celebrated. Like, everybody gotta celebrate it. So this is the problem that we have in America. We're trying to force other people to celebrate this thing, and it's really not going well. for these activists. So we're going to take a look at this. Let me just show you. And this is kind of upsetting to me because, you know, I don't know. You guys, let me know. Put it in the comment section what you think.
Welcome to the White House.
Thank you.
Happy Pride Month. Happy Pride Year. Happy Pride Life.
Yeah!
Transgender children.
You are beautiful.
You are heard.
You belong.
You are understood.
You are loved.
And you belong. Some of the bravest and most inspiring people I've ever known. And
you're welcome.
Good folks.
Can we take a little video? Hi, Mr. President. It is an honor. Trans rights are human rights. Oh, it's a video. Oh, it's a video.
The monument's in red, right?
Gay news. It's so damn. Are we topless at the White House?
So, and this is what Pride celebrates. That's why people don't like it. I mean, why do you have to be literally perverse in everything you do? I mean, some of the stuff that I've been seeing pictures on Twitter or videos on Twitter, like for the Pride Parade. Some of the stuff you can't even show. YouTube would like dox it and say it's not meant for, people, because it's almost like pornography. So even and it's like, okay, is this what you really represent? Celebrating this represents pedophilia, pornography, sodomy, anything that's sexual. That's what it represents. And I mean, tell me something different, because that's all I see. I don't see something like, oh, okay, we're prideful of who we are. But whatever you show us it has to be some type of sexual connotation to it. And people are saying like, oh, this is who we are. You need to validate us. But no, I mean, if a woman was going around saying that I'm a porn actress, you don't celebrate her, but it's okay for you guys to act sexual, do sexual, lewd and lascivious acts towards one another in a parade. To me, it's just ridiculous. Or show your breasts. If a woman did that, that's very inappropriate. So you as a man showing your breasts, what isn't that inappropriate? I don't see. But the response to what this guy was saying, oh, you just validated that I was a woman. No, anybody showing their body parts is inappropriate. It's not because you're a woman or a man. You're a man with prosthetic breasts. Why show it? It's inappropriate. That's the same if a trans man shows their penis. It's a prosthetic penis. So why show it? It's inappropriate. So I don't understand why are we saying it's supposed to be celebrated, but they double down. The White House doubled down when they was asked about this. Corinne, I think her name, Corinne Pierre, whatever her name is. She said it, this is a day we should celebrate these people. I don't know if you guys seen my post. Should we celebrate these people? Like usually we want to celebrate civil workers, police officers, military people, veterans, people that does service in the community. What service are you rendering in the community with pride? I mean, let me know. Put it in the chat and let me know what services should we be celebrating. Like, now, if you're saying, "Oh, I'm a part of the LGBTQ community and I'm also a military veteran," I should honor you. Or I'm a policeman. I should honor you. I should celebrate you because you put your life on the line to help others. But just because you're part of that's just as worse as saying, oh, I'm going to celebrate me because I'm black. I'm going to celebrate this person because they're white. I'm going to celebrate this person because they're a woman. Oh, I'm going to celebrate this man because he's heterosexual. That's just so ridiculous to me. So, I mean, do you guys see the ridiculousness in celebrating this particular thing because of your sexual orientation? I just don't see the purpose of it. I mean, but this is the White House. They doubled down and
that was inappropriate, disrespectful. Is there going to be a greater effort in the future to communicate a code of conduct for White House guests?
Look, as you mentioned, the statement that we put out, you heard from us earlier today, the behavior was simply unacceptable.
I don't know why I went mute.
As you mentioned, the statement that we put out, you heard from us earlier today, the behavior was simply unacceptable. We've been very clear about that. It was unfair to the hundreds of attendees who were there to celebrate their families. So, we're going to continue to be clear on that. And that type of behavior is, as I said, unacceptable. It's not appropriate. It's disrespectful. And let's not, it really does not reflect the event that we hosted to celebrate the LGBTQ plus families. Again, hundreds of families who were here to celebrate their community and who were here in attendance. So, look, individuals in the video certainly will not be invited to future events. And this has not occurred before, right?
This hasn't occurred before because they never had a pride party before. Let's clear that up. And if they have it, it didn't go viral. Like they didn't have a pride. They said that this girl is a activist, but somebody put in the chat like, no, she's a known porn star, or he's a known trans porn star. So, like, literally, are they inviting porn people to the White House? Like, to me, it's really ludicrous. But okay, let's move forward.
This was not a normal thing that has happened under this administration. But we've been very clear about how we saw this particular behavior.
One thing I hate to break through the video. Just a second. Cannon and Chase, y'all being too loud. Kids are off school break. I also want to point out what is actually normal for the Biden administration. What is normal? Because everything that I see throughout the last 2 years has been really strange and odd, ludicrous. I would use the word ludicrous. So what is normal for the Biden administration?
There's been some criticism also of the White House, the flag placement, the pride flag violating the U.S. flag code. Did anybody notice that or fail to notice that, or was it an intentional statement? Can you just explain what happened with that?
So the administration was proud, again, to display the pride flag. It was a historic event at the White House.
The administration was proud to display a pride flag. Why wouldn't you be proud to be an American? Like, why are you proud? Oh, we're celebrating LGBT trans people. We love you. We need trans people. Trans people, we love you. I'm for the gays. I'm really for the gays. Like, why are you proud about that? I mean, wouldn't you be proud or show pride to be an American? Hey, I'm in the White House. I'm proudful or prideful about being an American citizen, the home of the free, land of the brave. This is, to me, this is an odd statement to say. But because she's a lesbian, that's why she's saying that. So she got to stick up for her people.
House. It's centered around the love around love and family, and I think that's important. And so, we're not going to let anyone distract us from that. What was the meaning of the day? What was
Is there going
We're not going to let anyone distract us from that. What was the meaning of the day? What was the meaning of having families here and to celebrate a community? I'm certainly not going to get into protocols from here, or I'll leave that to others. And so, we're proud of this historic event that we were able to put together here on the South Lawn for our families. And so I'll leave it there.
Yeah. So, of course, she's not going to answer real questions. She's not going to give you a straight answer. Anything that she talks about or try to, or if the media asks her a question, of course, she's either going to give some snarky or smart comment, or it's not going to be a substantive answer that you could actually, oh, okay, that's a good answer. It's never that with her. And I think to say that she's probably one of the smuggest White House correspondents that I've ever witnessed. She's like on the top because she really never answers questions. And quite frankly, I don't even, well, she's pretty good at her job because she knows how to avoid questions or avoid answering questions. So that's one of the things that the White House and the Biden administration was busy answering this week. And also, we know that Fox News last night, they put on Fox News last night that Joe Biden is a wannabe dictator. Okay, so Joe Biden is a wannabe dictator because of all the other events that's been happening. And Tucker Carlson, he had a really great response to Fox putting that, and actually Corinne's, whatever her name is, Pierre, actually responded about that question. Well, she didn't answer it, but she responded to it in a non communicative way that anybody could understand, So since they put that on the news, the guy that put, the producer that put it on Fox News, he ended up getting fired. Because it was only up there for like 10 or 20 seconds. He ended up getting fired, and it was a bunch of backlash from that. So let's go to that clip before I get into the Judiciary Committee, because I think it's worth noting that, do you guys think Biden is on more lines of a dictator? I mean, some of the things that he's been doing, does it resemble dictatorship? I think this is a really interesting question for the American people, because, like, so you have these open border policies, but you still have Americans, that's struggling to meet rent payments. You have Americans struggling to put food on the table. You have Americans struggling to even find a job, only because they probably got, even if they don't have education or have education, they got a degree that doesn't fulfill the jobs that's available to them. Okay. But all the while you're accepting people in at the border, and you're shelling out money to other Ukraine and immigrants that are not legal residents here, and you're trying to force policies on other countries, and then you live in the White House. So you're like, oh, We're celebrating. Oh, we're combating climate change. We're celebrating. We're creating jobs. But all the people down here, you really don't have any clue of what's going on. And then you're penalizing people for trying to find the American dream. Like, say, for instance, if you want to buy a house and you save 20% down, you're penalized for that. You are now penalized for saving 20% down on your house and having good credit. So, and then, but you're telling the people, look what I done. And all while these people are suffering with drug addiction, joblessness, and actually education and crime in these major cities because of drugs and jobs. Okay. So does Donald, or what's his name, Joe Biden, does he really resemble a dictator? You know, when you think about dictatorship, does he really resembles that? But Tucker Carlson, he actually hit a home run explaining what he thinks about the whole thing. And I found it to be really interesting that he made these comparisons. And a lot of people agree with him. So we'll take a look at Tucker Carlson. We probably won't play the whole interview or the whole segment because it's like 13 minutes long. But I want you guys to listen to this.
Tuesday afternoon, the Biden administration had Donald Trump arrested. It was a pretty big news story. You may have seen it. Just before 9 p.m. that night, as part of its coverage, Fox News ran 2 live video feeds next to one another. On the right, Donald Trump addressed his supporters in New Jersey. On the left, Joe Biden spoke at an event for the Secretary General of NATO in Washington. Beneath those videos at the bottom of the screen, Fox's banner read this way, quote, "Wannabe dictator speaks at the White House after having his political rival arrested." Those words are up for less than 30 seconds, but the effect was immediate. Inside Fox, the women who run the network panicked. First, they scolded the producer who put the banner on the screen. Less than 24 hours after that, he resigned. He'd been at Fox for more than a decade. He was considered one of the most capable people in the building. He offered to stay for the customary 2 weeks, but Fox told him to clear out his desk and leave immediately. Then the company issued a public apology for the 27-second-long wannabe dictator line. Quote, "The chyron was taken down immediately," Fox's PR department said, and then added ominously it was, quote, "addressed." That was all true, but it was not enough to save Fox News from the ensuing scandal. For a time in the rest of the media, Fox's assessment of Donald Trump's arrest seemed to overshadow Trump's arrest itself. Suggesting that Biden is a dictator, declared the Washington Post, quote, "crossed the line." Alexander Vindman agreed strongly. Vindman is the perennial MSNBC guest and full-time Ukraine promoter you may remember from Russiagate. On Twitter, he demanded that the Pentagon pull Fox News from all military bases. It is, quote, "absolutely unacceptable for American Forces Network to carry programming that directly, spuriously, attacks the Commander-in-Chief of American Armed Forces," Vindman wrote. In other words, Joe Biden must ban all criticism of himself because that's what non-dictators do. John Cusack went further still. "For the crime of calling Biden a dictator, Fox should be shut down," wrote the 80s-era movie star. Quote, "the government has to take away their broadcasting license," and so on. It was all over the internet. Democrats were very, very angry.
Not only Democrats or John Cusack, but AOC, she carries the same sentiment. When Tucker Carlson, before he got fired, it was like a couple of days before he got fired. I forgot what he was talking about, but she got on the internet and said, "Oh, he shouldn't be allowed to be on the news. So you believe in silencing people because they don't agree with you." To me, that's just really ridiculous.
But why were they angry? If the banner on Fox was false, why the hysteria? Lies don't seem to bother anyone anymore. If some cable news producer had called Joe Biden a genius or accused him of being secretly Sudanese, would anyone be yelling about it? Would Fox News have apologized for it? Probably not. But calling Joe Biden a wannabe dictator, that stung. So you've got to wonder, if you're being honest with yourself, is Joe Biden a wannabe dictator? That question came up yesterday at the White House briefing. Here's how it went.
Last night, Fox News ran a chyron that referred to the president as a wannabe dictator, and I'm wondering if the White House has any comment on that.
So look, there are probably about 787 million things that I can say about this that was wrong about what we saw last night, but I don't think I'm going to get into it.
There's no comment the White House has on
I think I just commented.
Oh, no comment necessary. Of course Joe Biden's not a wannabe dictator. Just because he's trying to put the other candidate in prison for the rest of his life for a crime he himself committed doesn't mean he has a totalitarian impulse. Come on, that's absurd. It takes a lot more than jailing your political rivals to earn the title wannabe dictator. That's the consensus in Washington tonight. And in some ways, for once, the consensus may be right. It is not a small thing to be a wannabe dictator. It's quite a process. There are a lot of steps. First off, there is the money. The one thing that all dictators have in common is they enrich themselves and their families, their tribe, even as the countries they govern grow steadily poorer and more desperate. They take kickbacks from businesses and from other dictators. They use the official functions of their government to funnel cash to themselves. They don't bother to hide the fruits of this. They live in garish mansions with big lawns, far from the teeming cities, even as their own citizens languish in growing poverty, in some cases literally living in tents on the street. So they don't really hide it, it's all pretty blatant, and ordinary people resent it. Of course they do, and wannabe dictators know they resent it, but they don't care. There's nothing the population can do about it in a dictatorship. It's no longer possible to fight injustice in a system like that. People can't gather in large numbers to protest the rule of the dictator. If they try that, they'll be arrested by his state security services, even years after the fact. A visit from men in body armor at the breakfast table. That happens. And if citizens persist in believing they can gather in groups to protest, they may be shot to death, a bullet to the throat. And then, just to make the humiliation complete, to make the lesson gin clear to everyone else watching, their relatives can be arrested for daring to complain that their children were killed for complaining.
You guys, if you notice, Tucker Carlson, he is citing all true or factual things. These are the things that happen, all factual stuff. And when he going back to money, you have to have money and you funnel it to your families. This is what the Judiciary Committee is uncovering, that him and his family had some type of financial gain dealing with China. Okay, so that's what that $5 million is coming from. And you use your the governmental system to cover it up. So, and I'll show you on when Josh Hawley and some other senator, I can't think of his name, but he's out in Texas, questioned the FBI on why they were stonewalling. This is what Tucker Carlson is talking about. And then another lady, her daughter was killed for protesting, speaking the truth. But this is all true stuff, true events that already happened. So you got to really question yourself. Is it? I mean, if a spade, let's call a spade a spade. Is this what Biden is trying to get to? Dictatorship.
That actually happens in some places. Ask Ashley Babbitt's mother. Here she is in handcuffs.
You murdered her inside the Capitol, now you're going to arrest her? Come out of there. 101, have a transport response. Sidewalk.
So don't be like Ashley Babbitt's mother, much less like poor Ashley Babbitt. She's dead now. That's the message a wannabe dictator would send. And by the way, it's not just public protest that would be banned in a dictatorship. You wouldn't be allowed to complain from your own home. Unauthorized opinions expressed on the internet would be censored. Go too far, press too deep, tell too much truth, and they'll just erase your opinions.
YouTube, this is Tucker Carlson talking about YouTube. The Daily Wire, now they have like 3 or 4 of Daily Wire hosts. Michael Knowles, Candace Owens, Matt Walsh getting suspended because of what they're talking about. And if it's supposed to be free speech, why are you trying to silence people?
They have no choice, really. It's a matter, as they say, of trust and safety. You must trust the leader, or else you will jeopardize his safety. Not that you really can jeopardize his safety at this point. The leader has nuclear weapons, and you don't. He'll remind you of that from time to time. And in any case, you're in the process of being disarmed anyway, along with everyone else who has shown questionable loyalty to the leader. Those who support the regime can keep their weapons and use them freely, including on public transportation. That's a core civil right for them. But for those who dissent from the program, self-defense is an unaffordable privilege. Turn in your guns, Mr. and Mrs. Peaceful Opposition. You're a danger to society, and we know who you are. And in fact, the wannabe dictator does know who they are because he knows everything. Technology has made him all-seeing. A report in Wired magazine just this week revealed that the highly non-dictatorial Biden administration is busy tracking the phones of millions of Americans without their knowledge and without bothering to get a warrant. And at the same time, the same non-dictatorial administration is stockpiling a massive trove of damaging information about these same Americans, to be used at some point, we are sure, for entirely noble purposes. So the administration now knows everything: where you spend your days, who you talk to, what you think, your porn habits. Not a big deal. The administration already knows what you buy, of course, because they've leaned on the big banks to turn over your confidential credit card information. Not because anyone here is a wannabe dictator, to be clear, but just because. It's nice to have that information, just in case, in the words of the Fox News PR department, a situation arises that needs to be, quote, addressed. It's all totally normal. It's not a dictatorship, okay? But in the end, the main reason you know Joe Biden is not a wannabe dictator is because he just does not fit the profile as a man. Dictators have that look. You know one when you see one. Dictators build cults of personality around themselves, and they use those cults to deny the glaringly obvious. In his later years, to name just one example, North Korean dictator Kim Il-sung developed an enormous baseball-sized tumor on the back of his neck. It was huge, it was grotesque, it was right there, you couldn't ignore it. You couldn't possibly not see it. But in North Korea, state media did ignore it. They pretended it didn't exist. And so, in some important sense, it didn't.
And now right here, he's talking about, look, we're just gonna ignore Biden's mobility ability. we're just gonna know, like, if he doesn't complete a sentence fully, is incomprehensible. We're just gonna ignore his fine motor skills are depleting, and he might be onset dementia. We're just gonna ignore that because when you ask him a question, he just rambles. You know, you can't, it's incoherent, and you can't put a sentence together. You know, so we're just gonna ignore that. And then we're gonna say, oh, let him finish the job. President Biden, Joe Biden, Joe and Kamala, let them finish the job. They still have work to be done. 2024. And knowing he's not competent. And this is throughout major media. You're supporting an incompetent person. Instead of saying thank you for your service, it's time for you to hang it up and let some younger guy take your place. Or somebody that's more competent. But no, they don't want to do that because they're afraid. They know if they introduce somebody new, they're not going to win. So they got to keep Joe Biden in the place in hopes that Kamala will win the black vote and Joe Biden will keep his vote. But that's not going to happen. I think they're shooting themselves in the foot.
If a tumor grows on a neck but no one acknowledges it, is it really there? Thankfully, nothing like that is happening in our country or ever will. If Joe Biden ever developed some profound physical or medical problem that was obvious to everybody, journalists would say something. This is not North Korea. We don't have state media here. If Joe Biden was, say, incapable of completing a full sentence, or mistook his sister for his wife, or suddenly started falling down in public for no reason, the New York Times would report on that and then get to the bottom of what was actually happening. That would be its duty in a free country like ours. It's not like they would cover it up. The very idea of a cover-up sounds like a conspiracy theory, a dangerous one, actually, so stop it. And by the way, if Joe Biden was a wannabe dictator, he'd have the family to match. All dictators do. Saddam Hussein had Uday and Qusay. They were princelings who, indulging their most decadent fantasies with total confidence, they would be never held to account by the police.
Hunter Biden is so Tucker Carlson and his writers, they really did a good job on this one. He's making all the comparisons to dictatorship and is a striking resemblance of Joe Biden and his family. Isn't that crazy? I mean, they really did a good job in making the comparisons. Like, literally, you can't argue his points. Hunter Biden, as much evidence that they have against Hunter Biden, and they have not prosecuted him criminally, it's insane. It's insane and it's unjust. And it's a disservice to the American people. Because all it says that, all you have to do is be a political or have some type of political power, you can get away with anything. That's all it says. That means democracy doesn't work. Because you could do anything if you have some type of political power in America, and you get away with anything. That's the message that we're sending.
As the sons of a dictator, they knew they could do exactly what they wanted, and so that's what they did. There's no one like that around Joe Biden. He doesn't have weird sex scandals at the heart of his family that no one in the media will ever talk about.
That's, if you guys don't know, he's either smoking meth or crack. I mean, I don't know who got that picture, but that is horrible. He went to sleep.
He doesn't have a ne'er-do-well former nightclub-owning brother who's made a living for 30 years by being related to him. Not at all. That's dictator stuff. Joe Biden doesn't award ridiculous inflated titles to his relatives that the media are then required to take seriously. He doesn't call people doctor who didn't go to medical school and then force you to nod along like it's real when everyone knows it isn't. Nikolai.
I don't know if he's referring to Jill Biden. Is Jill Biden a real doctor? I'm not for sure. I have to look that up.
Ceausescu did that with his wife, Elena. Joe Biden would never do that. Nor does Joe Biden dress like a dictator. He doesn't do photo ops in mirrored sunglasses driving a sports car to convince you that he isn't frail and senile, but instead powerful, virile, and wise. That's just not his style. If Joe Biden was a dictator, he'd be wearing epaulets and carrying a tasseled riding crop, and he isn't yet, so calm down. If he was a dictator, Biden's speeches would look like Nuremberg rallies, a blood-red backdrop, armed soldiers by his side, screaming about crushing his eternal enemies. Honestly, Biden did come close to that one time last September at a speech in Philadelphia, but it wasn't in any sense dictatory. It was necessary. As MSNBC assured us at the time, quote, Biden aimed to showcase his faith in the military apparatus and its ability to back the democratic order. See, it was about democracy, not dictatorship. No cause for alarm. He is not a dictator. A dictator would stockpile ammunition for his own bureaucrats, including his tax collectors. He'd redefine the legal code to make disloyalty to the regime the most serious crime. He'd claim dominion over the most intimate parts of his citizens' lives. and religion and how to raise their families. He would even, in his final grandiose stage of dictatorship, claim ownership of their children. And Joe Biden wouldn't do that. And to prove he would never do that, Biden just this week released this video.
These are our kids. These are our neighbors. Not somebody else's kids, they're all our kids. And our children are the kite strings that hold our national ambitions aloft. It matters a great deal how we treat everyone in this country. LGBTQ Americans, especially children, you're loved, you're heard, and this administration has your back.
See? Joe Biden isn't saying your children belong to him like a dictator would. He's saying something very different from that. He's saying America's children are, quote, our children. Not his alone, ours. You share your children with Joe Biden evenly, right down the middle, with alternating weekends. You've got joint custody with Joe Biden, and you can thank heaven that you do. A nation is like a family. Every family has a head, a father. That's Joe Biden, our nation's father. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is now his fatherland. Just don't call it a dictatorship, or we'll have to issue a statement disavowing you.
Man. Joe Biden is our father. That was, to me, that was hilarious. I don't know about you guys. That was absolutely hilarious and brilliant on Tucker Carlson. The last thing I want to share with you guys. Okay, so we're saying that Joe Biden, Fox News, they made that claim that Joe Biden is a wannabe dictator. And then Tucker Carlson, he got on and made an episode and he pointed out, hey, if he was a dictator, he would be doing this and this and this. And they are strikingly similar to what Joe Biden and his family is doing, and Joe Biden administration is doing. So, but the last thing I want to share with you is the Senate hearings. Okay, we have Josh Hawley. Josh Hawley, he is, I think he's a senator of Kansas, but he's questioning FBI in his report. If I could scroll this screen. And we're going to take a look at that. And I don't know why I couldn't think of Senator Ted Cruz's name, but he also questioned the FBI over the alleged documents that they have with Joe Biden. And the FBI is claiming that, hey, we can't reveal these documents because the informant information is in there. And he was like, well, why don't you redact the document and leave the pertinent information? We don't need to know the informant's name. We just need to know what was found. And he could not answer Josh Hawley's questions. So let's get into it.
Okay, so now we've confirmed that the document exists. That's progress because the FBI director initially denied that it exists. Why did he do that?
We have already and previously acknowledged the existence of the documents.
Yeah, after you first denied it. Now, when a member of this committee read it, right, the FBI director, let's just get the record straight. The FBI director initially said it doesn't exist. Then Senator Grassley said, I've read it. Then he said, oh, okay, well, gotcha. I guess it does exist. Now you're going back and forth with members of this committee, what's in it. Why don't you just release it? Is it classified?
The document is not classified.
Okay. Will you commit to releasing it?
Senator, we'll take that back and we will work with you and this committee.
How about just a yes or no? Will you commit to releasing this unclassified document that alleges that the President of the United States, has taken $5 million or more in bribes from a foreign nation?
The document has already been released pursuant to a subpoena to the House Oversight Committee.
Has it been released to this committee?
We will work with this committee within the parameters that are established to meet
Will you release the
request.
document to the public? It's unclassified. Don't you think the American people have a right to see it?
Senator, the document, as you know, contains sensitive information that has bearing on the life of the source of the information, potentially.
You can redact the source's name. We do this all the time.
In some instances, Senator, and I know you know this, that is not sufficient to protect people. And that's what we strive and work to do each and every day. And I hope you would take that seriously, too.
Oh, I take it very seriously. But I also take seriously the fact that your institution has repeatedly abused its authority, has repeatedly targeted political opponents. Your institution is the one that went to the door of pro-life protesters with SWAT teams to try and intimidate people because of their speech. Your institution is the one that treated parents as domestic terrorists because of their speech. Your institution is the one that, according to the court, the FISA court, ran 278,000 unwarranted, probably illegal queries on Americans, right? That was your institution, correct?
With respect to the compliance incidents, yes, some of the other things you cited, we can take them one by one. They are not.
Compliance, you would characterize the unlawful querying 278,000 times of American citizens as compliance issues?
We've said before, I've said that totally unacceptable.
Who's been fired for it?
Individuals involved are handled through the disciplinary process.
Who's been fired for it?
We have, in the case of the unintentional instance where something similar happened, we have fired people in the past.
Wait, I'm sorry. What does that word salad mean? The unintentional instance where what does that mean? Who's been fired for the 278,000 times that you improperly or illegally queried the database for American citizens? Anybody?
When we find intentional incidents.
Well, you're saying that the 278,000 queries were unintentional?
I believe that's correct.
Wow, 278,000 times American citizens' information was queried by your agency unintentionally? That's your testimony?
I would want to go back and check that, Senator.
Like, if you say 10 times, yeah, unintentionally. The 278,000. Why he just lying? He lied.
Well, that's what you just told me.
My understanding is that the vast majority of
Well, wait, that's different. You just said it was. You just said it was unintentional. Now it's the vast majority. Which is it? Do you know?
I would want to go back and check it.
So you don't know?
My understanding is that likely all were unintentional.
Likely all. So first it was all of them, then it was vast majority. Now it's likely all. So you don't know is the answer to the question.
I don't know the answer as we sit here today, but I will
Could
find
have started
out and I
with
will
that
get back to
probably.
you.
Who was fired for the lies to the FISA court for the Carter Page warrant? Who was fired for that? Anybody? Has anybody been held accountable for your institution deliberately lying to a FISA court to get a wiretap on an ongoing presidential campaign?
There is an ongoing disciplinary process with respect to individuals involved in that.
Here's the deal. You're back in front of us asking for the reauthorization of extraordinary authorities. Multiple courts have uncovered extraordinary abuses perpetrated by your agency. You are at the same time concealing information about serious allegations made against the President of the United States, even as your institution also targets his chief political opponent in an unprecedented way. Why would we ever give you the blank check that you want to continue surveilling American citizens in an improper manner? Why would we ever do that?
Senator, we're here to talk about reforms today. I did get confirmation that the query...
No, we're not. We're here to talk about the reauthorization of Section 702. Why would we reauthorize it, given your track record of abuse and illegal improper surveillance and political targeting? Why would we do that? Why would it be appropriate for this body to do that.
We've made significant reforms and implemented corrective measures. We've seen significant progress as a result of that, Senator. The
So you
queries
say.
that you mentioned early were in fact unintentional. That's what I was just told by my counterpart.
That
Just to
is an
clarify
amazing.
the earlier question.
So your testimony is the 280,000 queries of American citizens was unintentional. That's your final answer?
That's how they were assessed by that team that did the review. I'm not satisfied with that. That's
Yeah, I
why
don't believe
we've
that at all.
implemented further measures, as I announced earlier today.
Yeah, I don't believe that at all. And frankly, we've heard from your agency 1,000 times that you're going to do better, will do better. You promised after the abuses of Title I you'd do better, and then we find out that in the meantime you're illegally querying 280,000 American citizens' data. It's unbelievable, frankly. Everything you say is unbelievable.
Senator Tillis?
Yeah, so there you have it. They're not going to answer any questions. You know, they revert to not answering the questions. The FBI thinks they could do anything. And they're stonewalling the investigation with President Joe Biden. And this is Ted Cruz questioning the FBI. Which he really doesn't get nowhere with him either. It's the same rigmarole that Josh Hawley experienced. And they're probably protecting Biden, Joe Biden, not proudly, but they are. They're protecting President Joe Biden and his family.
Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Ossoff. Senator Cruz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen, every day when I'm home in Texas, I hear from Texans who are deeply dismayed about the growing politicization and weaponization of the Department of Justice and the FBI. If you are not, every one of you should be deeply concerned about the damage being done to the integrity of the institutions in which you operate. My office hears regularly from FBI agents and from assistant U.S. attorneys who are likewise concerned about the politicization and weaponization of the Department of Justice and the FBI, and this is profoundly damaging to the rule of law in our nation. Last month, a whistleblower brought to light the existence in the FBI of a report, an FD 1023, in which the informant alleges that President Biden and his family members engaged in a $5 million bribery scheme during his time as vice president. Deputy Director Abate, is it true that the FBI has a report making those allegations?
I'm not going to comment on that, Senator.
And why is that?
I'm just not going to comment on information we received, investigations, or
Do you owe
ongoing
an
matters.
obligation to the American people to be candid about evidence of corruption by the President of the United States?
This is an area that I'm not going to get into with you, Senator.
Well, I understand you don't want to, and that's why people are mad at the FBI, because you're stonewalling and covering up serious allegations of evidence of corruption from the president. Yesterday, Senator Chuck Grassley stood on the Senate floor and alleged that there are 17 recordings of this informant from Burisma, Ukrainian natural gas company. 15 of them are recordings, voice recordings of him talking to Hunter Biden. 2 of them are voice recordings of him talking to Joe Biden. Deputy Director Abate, does the FBI have 17 voice recordings laying out evidence of a bribery scheme?
Senator, I would add also that we've worked with the House Oversight Committee.
Yeah, this is the
provide
Senate. We're the
document
other
that
side
you
of the Capitol. This is the Senate. Do you have those 17 recordings?
I'm not going to comment on any investigative matters, Senator.
See, that's the problem. The FBI, and I've had this conversation with Chris Wray too, this is why you are damaging the institution. The American people have a right to know whether there is serious, credible evidence that the President of the United States took a $5 million bribe. And by the way, if it's false, Chairman Durbin just rolled his eyes. If Chairman Durbin were interested in the rule of law, we would have a hearing on these allegations. But of course, the Democrats don't want a hearing on these allegations. And to be clear, if the allegations are false, you know who could disprove them? Joe Biden.
And Joe Biden can disprove them. If you're not really guilty, Just put it all out there. Pull it all out there. One thing that they talk about Trump, especially when his taxes, and when he was running on the campaign and Hillary Clinton tried to blast him saying, oh, you're not paying taxes, or you should be paying more taxes. I forgot what she actually said, but he said, yeah, I'm using the tax code that you and your people wrote. I'm just taking advantage of the tax code. So he wasn't ashamed about what he was doing legally. And they presented his taxes, and people gave him crap because he only paid $750,000 in taxes or whatever. It's like, okay, but he paid taxes. And I also used the tax code that you guys wrote. It's like, if you don't like the tax code, and I believe he said this, if you don't like the tax code, rewrite the tax code. But literally, you wrote this tax code. So back to Senator Ted Cruz. If these allegations are false, the number one person who could prove that these allegations are false is Joe Biden. You could just go up and say, oh, this money came from such and such. Or no, that money wasn't for me. I sold something. I'm not for sure what you would say or how you would but he has all the power to disprove these allegations by saying, hey, release these records.
He could call for this to be released publicly, but the FBI is stonewalling. Would you agree?
Two things, Senator. No one's stonewalling. The 1023
you just said you refused to answer the question.
In response to a subpoena.
I hate to keep interjecting, but they're not going to release the records because it's going to cause more questions. Okay, so why is this? What's going on here? When you release something, all it's going to open up for more questioning. It probably won't even solve or answer the questions that people are trying to answer. It's going to open it up for more questioning, a deeper rabbit hole. So that's why they're not going to release it.
Okay, then why'd you refuse to answer my question?
The pertinent information is there, and I reject your assertion that the FBI is politicized.
Why did you refuse to answer my question?
I just answered your question.
Okay, so yes, you have a 1023. Do you have the 17 recordings, yes or no?
I'm not going to get further into that.
So you're stonewalling. You can't say I'm not refusing to answer your question, but I won't answer your question.
I'm going to answer within the parameters that we operate in.
That's the problem. The FBI has right now an unlimited hubris that you believe you are unaccountable. You don't believe you're accountable to the United States Congress, and you don't believe you're accountable to the American people. And you are doing damage. The FBI is a great institution. When I go home to Texas, people ask me, should we abolish the FBI? Now, I tell them no, because you have heroes and patriots working for you that are catching child predators, that are catching terrorists. But you're sitting there happily erecting a wall to protect Joe Biden. Will you provide to this committee, not the House, the Senate Judiciary Committee, will you provide the FD 1023 and will you provide the 17 recordings so we can assess what is the evidence, the specific credible evidence that Joe Biden personally took a $5 million bribe from a foreign national?
Senator, we will work with this committee, you and other members, to provide the information within the parameters of the process.
Will you provide the FD 1023, yes or no?
I will take that back, and we will work with our team.
So you're not answering that. Will you provide the 17 recordings?
We will take that back, and we'll work with you.
So you're not answering that either. Did you investigate in any way, shape, or form these allegations?
Senator, once again, I'm not going to comment.
So you're not going to say whether you did your job?
We do our job to the very best of our ability.
Well, not here. You're not answering a single question to the American people. And you may think this is esoteric. I promise you, millions of Americans are concerned. You know who isn't concerned? Not a single Senate Democrat. We're going to go through this whole hearing. Not one Democrat will ask a question about this. You know who else isn't concerned? The corporate media, who is joining with the Democrats in covering up this evidence. If Joe Biden is innocent, the evidence should be made public and demonstrate that he's innocent. But if he is not, is it true this informant who alleged that he personally took a bribe was an informant the FBI had relied upon previously in other investigations? Yes or no?
Senator, in each and every investigation that we have, all the work that we do,
I asked you
the
yes or no
expectation
question.
is that every logical avenue investigation be pursued
I asked you a
to
yes
its
or no
fullest.
question. Are you going to answer it?
Yeah, I'm answering your question.
Was the informant one you had relied on previously in other investigations? Yes or no?
Senator, we run down every piece of information, every
You're not
lead,
answering it then. You're refusing to answer it. So you're refusing to answer the
to
question.
the fullest extent possible.
You're refusing to answer the question.
Senator,
Is
your
that
time
correct?
has
Aggressively in all
expired.
instances.
Senator, your time
It's
is
disgraceful.
Look, they're not going to answer the question. They're not going to answer. Joe Biden has the FBI in his pocket. They're working for him. The FBI works for Joe Biden. Okay, so when he says I'm going to go back to the necessary people to respond to your whatever your request, he's going to go back to Joe Biden. So we as the American people, you know, all we can do is hopefully Joe Biden will get out of office so we won't have to deal with this bull crap anymore. I mean, not only taking bribes. I mean, that's something that he will have to deal with if they actually prosecute him. It probably won't happen. But all this other stuff, yeah, hopefully we won't have to deal with it anymore. And does the FBI needs to be abolished? Yeah, because if they're being used for political gain to attack other opponents politically, I think it's a problem. I think it's a problem. There's a problem with the CIA too. So all these government establishments, there's a problem with them. And people in higher power is using them for their own henchmen. You know, so anyway, so that was it for our business talks. You guys subscribe and share this video. I am sending all my good to you. I will talk to you soon. Have a great weekend.